How can someone rise to the top, be the exception, stand out in the crowd? Well, what I'm going to share may seem at first to be a little counterintuitive, but bear with me. So we have to recognize that everything with God begins with an invitation. Think about it. Even a relationship with God begins with an invitation on His part, this opportunity presented, but we have to respond. Now, this is where we get this great disconnect, that people respond to that invitation, but then they put their focus on being nice people who are just doing nice things. This is where we get the average. But there's also the opportunity, the desire on God's part for those who will respond, that He wants to empower them and promote them, make them into mighty men and women, that they would stand out in the crowd, that they would rise to the top, they would be the exceptions. And so He continually has around us invitations. Whatever your status in life, wherever you are, a student in business, in organizations you're involved with, there are invitations all around us disguised as challenges. And many of those challenges are literally God's unique invitation to you to come into a situation, to be His representative, to receive His empowerment, to break things open. Whether it's a business that's in an impasse, that needs an innovation, whether it's a social issue, whatever the challenge is, those are God's invitations for us to partner with Him, and in doing so, see His power at work. In doing so, we find our relationship with Him growing closer, being transformed, and that overflowing and impacting other people's lives. But it begins with that recognition. So we have to recognize the invitation and respond to the invitation. And so often people just don't recognize the invitations. They see the challenges, but they don't see which ones are literally an invitation from God, where God is literally saying, hey, this is an opportunity I'm presenting to you. And it begins with us just getting that mindset of understanding that once you begin to grasp that, when you embrace that, okay, God, I am going to be presented with invitations, opportunities that will often be disguised as challenges. Help me to see which ones are from you. Watch that your viewpoint begins to change. And now you see something. And the best ones will be beyond your ability to handle it. That's the best kind. One, God's empowerment always comes after our response. We never get an invitation that's a billboard, that it's that obvious. And we never get God's empowerment before we respond. That's our reliance on Him. So the best ones will be beyond our ability, and they will require us to both recognize the challenge and then respond by going to God and say, okay, how do we deal with this? What's our strategy? What's our innovation? God, give me the power. Give me the ability. And what you'll find is that God has uniquely designed you to be His representative, to be His instrument, His change agent in the world around us. And He will give you unique opportunities. We have to recognize them and respond. Think about when David faced Goliath. Now, he was just a youth. But when David was preparing to face Goliath, the challenge nobody else wanted to deal with, what happens? That he was able to say that God has already given me these victories, that He had defeated the lion and the bear in the past. And he was able to say, God will bring this victory. He was able to look Goliath, that 9-foot giant, look him in the eye, so to speak, and say, God will defeat you. He had that confidence because the victories God had given him in the past. And the victories God give you, those then validate your promotion for the next and the greater challenge and the continued increase, that continued promotion. And if you think about it though, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here. So recognize the challenges as an invitation from God. But while we want to stretch ourselves, so many people want to tackle global initiatives. And rather, before we start to something beyond our league, that we recognize it is a series of promotions. Look for those challenges, those invitations that God has presented, that require a dependence on Him, that it will stretch us. It'll stretch our faith. It'll stretch our maturity. In the process, it will transform us. It will transform our relationship with God. In doing so, it validates us for further promotion. You know, there's this amazing promise that God told His people as they were preparing to enter into the promised land and face all the challenges that entailed. One of the things He actually said is, and it will be obvious to the world around you that you belong to the Lord, or you're one of God's people. Respond to the invitation, relying on God, then not only brings a victory, but it brings the recognition to the world around us that you belong to the living God.